Hi, and welcome to day 2 of our restful yoga series. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to call this series yet. I'm just kind of building it on the fly, finding these sequences that are peaceful, something that we can take with us maybe right before we go to bed, building a wonderful bedtime journey so that we're prepared to have a nice night's sleep, or maybe something that we need to like ease our bodies into the day so that we can have a very great transition into our morning so that we don't feel all stiff and achy when we wake up in the mornings. So for this class, you'll need a couple of yoga blocks. We're going to go ahead and get right into it because if you are getting ready for bed, I don't think you want to wait very long to make your way there. So we'll go ahead and come into a cross-legged seat, grabbing our blocks. It doesn't matter which way you have your legs crossed, just whatever feels comfortable for you. We do want to have the blocks in front of our crossed legs, maybe about 6 to 8 inches, depending on the length of your upper body. From here, we're going to take our left elbow. I'm going to place it a little further away from us, maybe more towards that right edge of our blocks. You can even offset your blocks towards the right knee a little bit more. We're going to go for just having that left elbow placed further away from us towards the right side. And then from here, take the right hand to stabilize that left elbow so it kind of stays put. And from here, we're going to create a little bit of traction by leaning our upper body towards the back left portion of the room. So you should feel a little stretch into the back of that left shoulder, stretching into the traps, and moving right on into your breath. Just kind of creating a little bit of traction, easing out any tension that maybe we created during the day, or maybe you feel a little stiff when you wake up in the morning. Finding some of these simple movements to kind of release the tension in our body can really help us build up strength and just kind of stay energized throughout our day as well. Slowly come back to an upright. We're going to move those blocks now, take them over, maybe offset them a little further to the left. Again, depending on your body dimensions, maybe they'll be more centered for you, depending on how big of a stretch that you can take into your shoulders. You may not be able to go as far to the left. When you're ready, we'll set that right elbow down, place it down, and then take a hold of it with that left hand to just kind of create a little anchor. And then we're going to start to shift and maybe even feel that tailbone curl underneath you as you start to shift the weight of the body towards the back right corner. And feeling that traction by holding on to the elbow and at the same time shifting the body weight towards the back, you should feel a nice stretch, especially into the back of the right shoulder, maybe a little into the underneath side, into your right armpit. Keep the face relaxed. Maybe give yourself a smile. This is definitely a big tension area for me. When you're ready, let's go ahead and release it. And you can place your blocks out of the way just for now. From here, we're going to inhale the arms up, grab a hold of the opposite elbow or to the forearms. If your shoulders aren't as open, you may want to grab your forearms. And we're going to stay upright in the torso, lifting up, maybe draw those elbows back further towards the back of the room. And then from here, let's just side body lean over towards the right. You can even open up the chest, maybe gaze up towards the ceiling. Taking a further stretch down that left side body. Try to keep the left hip anchored onto the mat. Breathing here. On the next inhale, we'll come into center. And then when you're ready, we'll exhale over towards the left. Again, maybe shifting the gaze up towards the sky. Perhaps noticing any differences from the right to the left. It's trying to stay open, Keep pushing those elbows towards the back of the room. And let's inhale back to center. Go ahead and release the arms down. You can go ahead and give them a little shake out. When you're ready from here, we're going to transition on our mat and we're going to come onto our bellies, finding a nice shoulder stretch here. So as you can tell, we're working more into the upper arms to get started. First, come onto your bellies, and then from here, we're going to take that right elbow out to a 90-degree shape or a cactus shape. The palm of the hand is facing down. The right side of the face rests down onto the mat. And from here, we're going to control how much of a stretch we get into the front of that right shoulder, pressing into the mat with your left hand, maybe allowing that left leg to come back in behind the right leg. And then from here, again, give yourself a little smile. Sometimes this can be really intense on that right shoulder. You have to remember the body is three-dimensional, so it's the back of the shoulder, the front of the shoulder, underneath the armpit. At times, all of these spaces within our bodies need a little love, and they need some time to stretch and relax, especially if you're in any position or job where you are maybe repeating the same thing a lot, or if you're sitting a lot, maybe hunched over at your desk. Giving your shoulders a little time out, especially if you're preparing for bed, can really help find ease within the whole body and even in the mind as well. Slowly start to come out of this. Again, use care, because that's a pretty deep stretch coming onto your belly. And from here, we're going to take that onto the left side. So a nice 90 shape onto the left elbow, and then start to roll over onto the left side. Maybe shift that right foot behind you, and then gauge how much pressure you want into this left arm. Pressing into the mat with the right hand to kind of control how much pressure you have into that left shoulder. And then start to roll out of that, coming back onto your belly, and then moving into Sphinx pose. So a nice gradual back bend. From here, make sure the feet are open up nice and wide. Give your lower back some room to breathe, and then allow the elbows to come just slightly in front of the ribs so they're not hiked up directly underneath you. Give your elbows and your upper body some space as well. And I like to have my forearms on just a slight diagonal in my Sphinx pose. The fingertips, the index finger is pointing towards the top edge of the mat. From here, think about lifting the chest, lifting the heart center, and drawing the shoulders down and away from the ears. So you actually should feel quite tall in your Sphinx pose. Avoid being like a little turtle and keeping those shoulders next to the ears. You want to lift up, create space between the ears and the shoulders. Very good. From here, we're going to extend the arms out in front of us. Reach the hands out in front of you. Probably will go off of your mat. And then from here, we're going to tuck the tailbone. At the same time, press firmly into the earth with your hands, really rounding into the upper back, spreading the shoulders wide. Firmly draw the navel in. You should feel engagement into the core as you have the tailbone tucked. The armpits are lifting just off of the mat. This is actually a very active variation of a cow pose in this reclined position. And then when you're ready, we're going to release. Allow ourselves the belly to come down onto the mat, come back into our Sphinx pose. Draw those elbows back into where they once were. Pause here in our Sphinx. If you would like to go a little bit deeper in our back bend, the next progression will be to come into cobra. So from our cobra, lift the elbows just about an inch, maybe 2 inches up off of the mat, but you still have a bend within the elbows. We're still lifted into the heart center. And then at this time, maybe if you want to create a little more activation in your back bend, you can press down into the mat with your hands and feel like you're trying to draw the hands in towards your torso. Inhale here. And exhale, release back down. Back bends, of course, can be very invigorating. So we're going to take them nice and slow, especially if they're using this for a prep before bedtime. We just want to unwind the spine and not really activate or energize the entire body. From here, we're going to take our nice reclined or prone stretch here and extend the hands out. Again, press down into the earth with your hands. Start to curl the tailbone under. Draw the navel in. You'll feel the belly start to slightly lift away from the mat. Pressing down into the hands, you'll feel the armpits lift up off of the mat. Gaze is down. Pressing here. And then allow the forearms to come back down onto the mat. Pull the arms back in, returning back to our Sphinx position. So from our Sphinx, you can stay right in Sphinx, relax and hang out here in your beautiful back bend. You can move back into your cobra position, lifting the elbows just an inch or so up off of the mat. Or if you would like to go all the way into seal pose, you can extend the elbows so that they're nice and straight. You may even want to walk the hands in a little bit closer, but I do recommend maybe even widening out the hands so that they're spread a little further apart. Or coming to fingertips if you want to go for even more depth. I think I'll stay down on my palms, finding our seal pose, staying lifted in the chest, drawing the navel in, taking a couple more breaths here. Very good. From seal pose, we'll lower down once more. We'll take one more round of that variation of our prone cow pose, extending the hands out in front of us, pressing down into the earth with the hands, curling the tailbone, drawing the navel in, rounding through the upper back, feeling the shoulders spread wide apart, lifting the shoulders, the armpits up off of the mat. You may feel even a little trembling here. We're not holding it for long, just a little active stretch, and then allow yourself to relax back down onto the mat. Very good. Go ahead and take the hands, bring them underneath your shoulders, press yourself up and back, and then we're going to turn ourselves to come to a seat on our mat. Extend the left leg out. I'm just going to take my left leg at a diagonal, finding head to knee pose here on the left side. So we'll bring the inside of the right foot to the inner left thigh, closing off the hips so that you're faced directly over the top of that left leg, and then just allowing yourself to fold from the hips and drape over the top of that left leg. Getting a stretch into the back of the left leg and the hamstring. But no need to force anything. We're just giving the body time to relax and loosen up of its own accord by using our inhales and exhales. Seeking out that peacefulness and that relaxation that resides within us so that we can encourage the brain to talk with the rest of the body to allow things to move into more sense of ease so that we don't tighten in areas like the low back or into our hamstrings. Sometimes we just have a natural tendency to want to tense up when we move into some of these muscles. And true, many times we do need strengthening in a lot of these muscles. But there's also this reaction between the nerves and the brain where we always try to protect for ourselves when we move into different postures. And sometimes we need to retrain our brain to realize that we are practicing in a safe way on our journey, and so we may find ourselves deepening even more once we have that positive reinforcement when we move into these postures. From here, let's go ahead and bring ourselves back to an upright position. We're going to place the right hand off behind us so it's kind of in line with the right hip, but away from us maybe about a foot or so. And then we're going to come into a variation of a supported side plank. So we're going to press down into the mat with our right hand, bring that right knee so that it's about underneath the right hip. Extend the left leg out long, pressing into the outer edge of that left foot. You can begin by having the left hand onto your hip and just feel yourself supported and balanced here, and maybe even feeling a stretch already as you press into the outer edge of that left foot. When you're ready, let's inhale that left arm up. Bring the fingertips towards the sky. Breathe. Staying open the chest, really pressing into the mat with that right hand so you stay lifted in the shoulder. And then let's bring that left fingertips overhead. So we're reaching towards the front of the room with the left fingertips, creating a nice arc from the left hand all the way down to those left toes. If this feels good, maybe you want to seek out more of a back bend and rotate the chest so the heart center perhaps comes to reach the ceiling. Gaze goes up. We're still reaching long with those fingertips and also pressing down into the mat with the left toes. Slowly, let's revolve the chest so that now we are looking towards the mat, and we're going to walk the hands in front of us, coming into a cow face pose. So we're going to swing that left knee and bring it up and over the top of the left shin. Widen out those feet. I'm just going to reposition myself so that I'm not coming off of my yoga board. And then we're going to go ahead and sit down so that the sit bones come in between the heels. Play around with how close the heels are to the hips. The closer the heels are to the hips, the little easier it is. Also, if this is too much on your knees, you may want to sit yourself higher up on some blocks or some stacked blankets to feel more comfortable. And don't worry about if that top knee is lifted super high. That's perfectly normal. Just if you feel any intense stretching or too much of an edge when you're coming into this pose, don't come down as deeply, or maybe leave it out altogether. If you are in your cow face pose and would like to start to lean forward and create more sensation into the hips, you can start to walk your fingertips forward. Pausing here. And when you're ready, we'll inhale it up. Go ahead and unravel those legs. We'll take a couple of windshield wipers before we move on. We're going to come onto our backs next. And when you make your way there, go ahead and grab a block. We will be using that for the next series. Spin yourself around. Come back down onto your backs. Keeping the knees bent, we'll grab our yoga block and place it in between the knees. So the knees are squeezing that block, holding it in place. From here, we're going to go ahead and draw the knees up so that they are in this kind of reclined tabletop position. And we're going to take some active hip rotations, keeping our hips nice and healthy. And we're going to open up the feet. So the feet are pointing to the outer edges of the mat. We're squeezing that block with our knees. And then bring the feet in together, back to parallel. You should feel the hips really fire as you open the feet up. And close them once more. We're going to take 3 more. We're not really trying to work our heart rate up very much here, but I think having a few movements to incorporate strength into our hips, even if it's just a few rotations, can be very healthy and beneficial. Let's take one more. Bring the knees back to parallel. We'll go ahead and remove that block. And from here, let's go ahead and take that right foot, plant it down onto the earth. The right knee is still bent. And then we're going to extend the left leg long, but it's lifted so the knees are parallel. The left leg is lifted. And then we're going to take the left foot and rotate the left foot so that the toes of the left foot are pointing inward. So you might have about a 45-degree angle on your left leg. As much as you can, try to get those left toes to point over to the right. And from here, we're going to slowly lower the left leg as we keep the toes pointing to the right. And then we're going to lift the left leg back up so that the knees come back to parallel. Now this is working that outer left hip flexor, the TFL. We're only going to take 5 very slow movements here. We should be on 3. 4. And last one. We're going to go down. Lift it back up so that the knees are parallel. You can bring the toes back to facing the ceiling, and then cross that left ankle over the top of the right knee, coming into a reclined figure 4, reclined pigeon. You can stay right here, maybe press that left hand into the inside of that left inner thigh, pushing that knee away from you for a nice little stretch. Or you can start to draw the right knee in, maybe thread the left hand in that little space, that triangle that you have created with your left leg, and interlace the fingers either on the front of that right shin, or you can also bring them to the back of the right thigh and draw the right knee in. As you draw that right knee down and into the chest, think about at the same time pressing into the inside of that inner thigh of the left leg with your left elbow, pressing that left knee away from you. That's going to create more of a stretch into the left hip. And go ahead and release that right leg down. You can uncross that left ankle. From here, we're going to go ahead and just draw the knees in. Make your way to a seated position once more. And we'll find our head to knee pose now on the right side. So extending the right leg out nice and long. Draw the left foot to the inside of that right inner thigh. Start by taking an inhale to prepare, and then exhale, fold yourself on over the top of that right leg. Finding our stretch in the back of this right hamstring. Maybe feel a bit into that right calf. And optional too, I usually tend to flex my feet when I'm making these hamstring stretches because it goes a little bit deeper into my hamstrings, but maybe you want to play around by pointing the foot or even opening the foot out to the left or to the right. Again, we're 3-dimensional beings, so depending on where you're tight, depending on what part of the hamstring you may feel tighter, it may feel good to open up the leg to the left or to the right. On the next inhale, let's come upright, walking our hands up, sitting up nice and tall. We'll find that supported side plank now on the left side. So we'll bring that left hand out, maybe about a foot or so away from the left hip. Really press down into the mat, press into the right foot so you can lift yourself up, and then draw that left knee so it's underneath your left hip. You may want to adjust where your right foot is so that you're more in line. I feel more supported when I have pretty much everything in a line from heel to knee to hand, and then begin by finding your alignment, perhaps by just allowing that right hand to rest on the right hip. Press firmly into that right foot. Feel yourself pressing to the outer edge of the right foot, getting a nice stretch into that right side. When you're ready, inhale the right fingertips up towards the sky. Really reach up tall. You should start feeling the right side start to fire up. And then when you're ready, we're going to bring the right fingertips overhead and then reach in this great big arc, this rainbow shape. from your right fingertips all the way down to the outside of the right foot. Perhaps you'd like to create more of a back bend. Start to rotate the chest so that it reaches towards the sky. Perhaps gazing up and maybe reaching the right fingertips a little more towards the back of the mat. Wherever you're at, stay with your breath. And on the next exhale, we're going to rotate the torso so that we look down towards the mat and then bring the hands, walking them towards the front and moving into our cow face pose. We're going to step that right knee, bring it over the top of the left shin. So we have our legs crossed at the knees, opening up the feet out wide, and then just sinking the hips down onto the mat, adjusting myself a little bit so I don't come off of my board. Feel comfortable in your knees. Make sure that is your top priority. And then when you're ready, start to fold forward from your hips, getting this very deep stretch in our cow face pose. Feeling that tension in the hips and the lower body start to melt away. And when you're ready, we'll go ahead and inhale up, release the wind of the legs, and we'll take some windshield wipers. Once more, we'll return onto our backs and we'll take that series on the opposite side, working our hip rotators and creating a little bit of strength in our hip flexors. Find your way onto your back, have your block ready, and then keep the knees bent. Once you find your reverse tabletop, we'll grab that block, place it in between the knees, have a good position there so it feels secure. And we'll take those rotations and we're going to open up the feet, bringing the ankles to reach the outer edges of the mat. Feel that internal hip rotation and then allow the feet to come back to parallel. Again, we're going to go for 5 rotations. That was 1. Opening up and then bringing the feet together for 2. Open the feet up and then together for 3. Open and close for 4. Open up and close for 5. Wonderful. Remove the block. Go ahead and allow that left foot to plant down onto the floor. Extend the right leg out long so that the knees are parallel. Again, we're going to rotate inward with the right leg, so the right toes should be pointing over to the left, maybe about 45 degrees or less, depending on your range in your hip and in your leg. We want to avoid extra torque on the knee, so we really want to, don't force this with your toes. We're just looking for a slight internal rotation of the right leg. And we're going to lower that right leg down and then bring it up so it's parallel with that left knee. Lower it down for 2. Slowly lift for 3. Try to keep the lower back firmly planted onto the mat, lowering down. And then lift. We'll take 1 more, lower, and lift it up so that the knees are parallel. Go ahead and bring the right toes to point back up to the ceiling and then cross the right ankle over the top of the left knee, perhaps pressing into the inside of that right inner thigh, pushing the right knee away from you. Or you can take the variation of reclined pigeon where you thread the hands to meet either at the front of that left shin or the back of the left thigh, starting to draw that right shin in towards you. Drawing the legs in and down towards the mat at the same time. Pressing that right knee away from you really, really creates a deep stretch into the outside of the right hip. Keep breathing here. Relax the face and the upper body so it feels heavy. And then we'll release the legs, unravel the legs, coming into a variation of a supported bridge, grabbing your block, placing it underneath the sacrum so you have it just below the lower back and you feel firmly supported. Allow the feet to be underneath the knees and the hands to open up towards the sky, palms facing up, relaxing in this bridge pose. Taking about 3 to 5 breaths here to seal in our practice. We've taken our yoga vitamins for the day. Whether you've decided to take these stretches to bring yourself into a restful journey as you go to bed, or if you're easing into your morning, and when you're ready, press down into the mat with your feet to lift the hips up. Set the block aside, lower the hips down onto the mat. Draw the knees into the chest. Squeeze the knees in as you draw the head, neck, and shoulders up off of the mat. And then slowly release the head, neck, and shoulders down. From here, you can either roll like a ball coming up to a seat, or you can push yourself onto your side and come back up into a seated position. We'll close out our practice just allowing the hands to rest gently into our lap, closing the eyes, taking any final reflections that you want to take, giving yourself admiration for making your way onto your mat, and keeping your body and mind feeling healthy. When you're ready, blink the eyes open. Prepare for your restful journey or your peaceful morning. As always, I hope that you have a great day. Make it a good one. Bye.